Call to order the regular council meeting for Tuesday. Why am I? Tuesday, June 16th. I'm getting a feedback on if I turn. Thank you. I'll try that now. Still feedback? No? No feedback. Good. All right. And this is electronic meeting. Introduction from the corporate officer. You can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So all microphones will be muted during the meeting, and we'll ask staff to please turn their video off unless they're presenting or speaking. Council is asked to keep their video on unless they're leaving. In this, now seeing that council is all present in council chambers, welcome back everyone. We can raise our physical hands to speak rather than using the chat or the raise hand option. Staff can use the raise hand option in Microsoft Teams, and hopefully we have no glitches in our electronic meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And first is the adoption of the agenda. Councillor McKenzie and Councillor Scarrow, those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Adoption of the regular council meeting minutes of June 2nd. Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Ireland, one of the outliers out there, and Councillor Gamble, the other outlier. Those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. No errors or omissions. No report. Property taxes due December 30th at 6 p.m. and September. Wednesday, 6 p.m., September 30, 2020. You may pay in person at the Municipal Hall. And we strongly encourage you to pay through your bank, online, or by check deposited in the drop box located at our front door. Eligible property owners need to claim the homeowner grant also by September 30. If you are paying your taxes in person, please ensure your homeowner grant form is completed before entering the building. For questions about your property taxes, please call 250-766-6680 and get all the news you need. So, public comment. People phoning in?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I will, the phone number is available on our website, and I will put it up on the screen now for anyone that is watching our live meeting. We do have about a 30-second delay, so if we can wait approximately 30 seconds, and if we do have any phone calls, we will transfer them through directly to the council chambers audio.
And if I don't hear any phone calls by the count of 10?
30.
30.
You gotta wait in line for everything now.
I suppose. Well, I have a sweep hand on my. So. We can have a moment of silence. All the people suffering.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. There's been no calls received at this time. If we do happen to receive them after, we can always put them through.
Really good. Thank you. Then we get right to development-related applications to development permit. And is staff going to be here, or are they doing it from their office?
Staff have the option of attending in person or through their office, I believe. Is Jamie presenting
Mm,
for this item? He is available online.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I'm not sure if you can, everyone can see me, just making sure.
No, can't see if we can hear you. We believe you're there. Yeah. Oh, yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
The planner on the file, Paul Dupuis, is going to be presenting the files tonight. I believe he's just walking in right now, so.
Oh. Yeah.
It's perfect timing, and it saves me looking like I'm catching up.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Paul. Good evening. Good evening. Good to see you.
There? Thank you. It's nice to be here. Let's get everyone together.
You got,
Oh, sure.
Yeah, you can get the extra
Okay.
Also need to turn on the microphone.
What's that, sorry? Well, you know what was interesting? Is I was in here upstairs and oh, weird. Okay, that is perfect.
PowerPoint.
And you can share your screen with Teams.
So
Wow.
we'll go like this. Oh, I guess we have to do Teams first.
Can't see it for faces.
So share.
No.
All right, and there we go.
Oh,
Is it showing up?
yeah.
Perfect. So, Mayor and Your Worship, we have a development application here for council. The file number is DP 2019-035. It is McDonald Lakeshore Properties Limited. The zoning is a split zoning for the property. It's I1 General Industrial and DC3 Direct Control for Lakestone. The OCP also has it split future land use designations of industrial and urban residential. There is no address for the property, so the legal description and the subject this evening is development permit for hillside, natural environment, agriculture, greenhouse gas, and resource conservation. The subject property is located on Glenmore, just north of the Chase Road intersection. The subject property is 3.34 hectares, which is equivalent to 8.27 acres. The aerial here, you'll notice that there's been some work on the site, mainly related to storing some equipment from for the paving project. And council should also note that a lot of the vegetation on the site is not as dense to the east as it is to the west. Mainly the industrial portion is not well treed. Google Earth rendering, again, just showing the property. Here you will see our zoning map. I should mention that council in March approved a rezoning, whereby that zoning line has been shifted slightly to the left or to the west. It just hasn't showed up on our mapping as of yet. So the site plan being proposed, this is conceptual in nature at this point, is for 4 buildings. with a temporary road access or driveway access, what we would call. The site grading plan has two sections, section AA and BB. And you can see here, is there a pointer? Why is that running? Yeah, I'll use the most here. So you can see here, this is actually natural grade, and this is going to be finished grade when they're completed. And natural grade is here, and this will be the finished grade when completed. This just shows the difference in grade. So it is a essentially an east-facing aspect with lower grades here and higher grades here. I was at the site on Friday, and here's some pictures. So just at the front of the property here, you can see, as with the aerial, where there's been some equipment or material stored, signage. And then if you come up this way, this is this picture here, showing this area here. This is more to the north, northwest. And from this picture, it'd actually be over here. And it's a little access, if you so will. And this is this mound up here. And of course, it's a big site to walk the whole thing.
Councillor Mackenzie had a question. Turn your microphone on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thanks. Sorry, just on your first part of that, you said that's going to be a temporary road to those four buildings. Why? Can you maybe explain the temporary portion of that?
It may end up becoming permanent, but the applicant has only asked for temporary access at the moment. I'm guessing because they're probably roughing it in and not fully paving it at this point until they actually come back for an industrial development permit, which I will get to moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So the application is for the clearing and grubbing of the site to prepare for future industrial development as the property is zoned for that use. Any future industrial development would require that a new development permit is issued, mainly an industrial DP for form and character of the buildings. An agricultural development permit has guidelines regarding buffering from agricultural land. The applicant is requesting that the agricultural buffer be deferred until the site is fully developed. The applicant has provided a plan for the agricultural buffer, which includes a cost estimate of $58,233. And the applicant has provided a cost estimate for mitigative works, including hydro seeding and trail cleanup, and other environmental considerations, such as the building of 15 bat boxes and bird houses. And that's at a cost of $3,438. Trees will be removed to clear the site, but it's important to note that only the area that is zoned for industrial use will be impacted. Therefore, there will be some tree retention to the west of the property. And as of today, a temporary access permit was issued by our engineering team. Just to show council, this is their estimate for landscaping under the environmental DP. And you will see that it is 125% of the total cost, $3,437.50. And they provided an estimate, but I thought I would show council what they've provided in terms of an agricultural buffer. So the developer is absolutely thinking about this. And some of the arguments or rationale for deferring it is that during site development for the industrial site, some of that may actually be damaged. And so they really would like to wait until the development is complete. And our staff preferred option is that the development permit for the subject property to get it ready for industrial development be approved, and that prior to issuance, the chief financial officer receive a security in the amount of $3,438, and further that the applicant has 5 months to meet the prior two conditions, which can be extended by council once only for an additional 3 months on written request of the applicant. Option B is that the development permit for the subject property for the clearing of the site for industrial development be revised to include full agricultural landscape buffer and security in addition to the $3,438 security for environmental monitoring, and be approved as revised. and that prior to issuance, the chief financial officer received a security in the amount of $58,233. And further, that the applicant has the 5 months as well as the 3-month extension if council wishes. And lastly, option C is that the development permit for the subject property be denied. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to start this process. I'll move option A to start with.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I have a couple of questions, first of all. And the first one is the temporary road and the access in there. What I've read in the package is that there is going to be a certain amount of soil removal from that property, so it'll be trucked off. And generally, when you do have that kind of thing happening, there's a lot of dust. There is a cherry orchard directly across the road from this, and deposit of dust can actually really affect the quality of cherries, especially in overseas markets, really important. So I'm very concerned that we would defer that agricultural buffer because I think it is very pertinent. And of course, the property also, I believe, from what you showed, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, the natural slope is kind of toward the east. And it looks as if they're going to build a bit of a plateau, kind of a plateau that will be level, and that's where the industrial buildings will be. So in fact, there's going to be a slope downward, so the dust will likely flow that way as well. I was going to ask about a buffer, a berm, because quite often, as we had talked about and put in the requirements for the industrial property that is up on Dick Road, we've asked for a berm there and a buffer, and that was in right off the outset. So I surprised that we would defer that right now without really discussing it. We've got the motion on the table, and we haven't really discussed the options very clearly. But you know, I find in the face of protecting the agriculture. I mean, if you put that buffer in now, you have the opportunity for the vegetation to actually grow in place and be meaningful. So by the time you actually do the development, you've actually got a good buffer there. It's at least it's on its way.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And that's why I want Councillor Gamble to go first, because she articulated my concerns, and I would echo those. Obviously, we've seen the impact just on the Osceola roundabout most recently of dust on apple orchards and cherry orchards. I know the applicant is here, so I'm just wondering on the timing of this work. Is it, time to start now, or is it going to happen in September, maybe after the cherry harvest? So I would just appreciate some clarity on that. I did notice that the timing of when the site is developed, it's noted in the report that it's market driven. So technically we have no timeline for a landscape buffer to be in place. So my concern is sort of longer timeframes, not just this year, but when we enter the next year, what is going to be the impact of dust on that site? And maybe the applicant has plans to mitigate it, but I would certainly agree with Councillor Gamble that we need to do something to protect the farming opportunities that are opposite that site.
Councillor Scarrow.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. I'm afraid I'm in line with Councillor Reid and Councillor Gamble on the berm for the agriculture. I do believe that protecting our existing agricultural and farms is a priority for this community. And I agree with Kent Penny's analysis of what will the airflow be coming down off of that. Because of some of the things that Councillor Reid has just mentioned and the timeline for development, I would be interested if the proponent, Don, could come forward and give us a little bit of a better idea of the length of time of construction. And if we were to go with option B, which allows him, I believe, a few months to create that berm and gives us the security bond to create it for him should he fail, I believe that that's maybe the option that I'm leaning towards supporting right now, even though I seconded Todd's just for discussion. But that was just to clean up a thing. So I guess my question through the chair would be to Don, if he could come up forward and tell us a little bit about, oh, by all means. Anyway, that's my queries, is how long is the construction period going to be, and stuff like that.
If I may, Your Worship, to council, the landscape buffer and a berm are actually two different types of things. The agricultural development permit guidelines don't include a berm. In the case of the Redicop situation, council did ask for a berm, but that was as part of a rezoning request, which council has full discretion. Currently, there is no provision within our agricultural development permit section of our official community plan to put in a berm. The developer may wish to do that on their own accord at the wishes of council.
Sorry about that. I'm Don Erdley, the VP of Development for Lakestone. The berm is going to be almost impossible for us to do. When we flatten the site, the level platform is going to be substantially higher than Glenmore Road. And so the buildings are going to be above Glenmore. So to have a berm to separate the buildings from Glenmore is just about impossible because the platform's here and then the landscape buffer comes down and then the road is like this. So the berm is just about impossible to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Scarrow.
Thanks, Don. I envisioned the berm to be on the reconstructed plat part of the industrial park. So if you were to landscape it and put the buildings on, I would have imagined the berm would have been on the higher part up with the buildings to, number one, visually kind of hide the development, and secondly, to deal and debris that we talked about coming down the hill, which I exactly, and you must agree, would definitely happen. So I see maybe a lesser berm, but in front of the buildings up on the higher elevation. Is that possible?
So maybe Paul, could you bring up that cross section again? Can we stand this close while you're doing that? So the answer is yes. If we have room behind the row of buildings that front Glenmore Road, we will gladly place a berm, landscape it, to whatever capacity you'd like. I'm just really concerned that there's not enough room, as the platform just barely fits the 4 buildings that we have planned. And we're well within the setback. So it's going to be a real tough thing to do, but we'll certainly do our best.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out.
Can't you make the platform bigger?
The only way to make the platform bigger is to bring it out to Glenmore Road, and then you're going to require retaining walls. Going the other way, we started to get into the tree line, which is the big trees that will eventually be public-owned park space from Lakestone. So the way that the project is designed is it just goes up to the tree line and doesn't take out any big trees whatsoever. So to expand the pad would just require a bunch of retaining walls.
Thank you for your answers.
Yeah.
Also, that's okay, Paul.
Oh, I'll just pull that up.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so you can kind of see how it slopes down to Glenmore Road on the right-hand side. So, and maybe I could just pass this around. You could just have a look at that. And so you were talking about timing. Our timing is this, that we still have to apply for subdivision. We still have to apply for a form and character development permit. We're getting near to the point where we're ready to make those applications. Obviously, we are waiting for the Glenmore Sewer Project to complete. I've been in communication with the developer from the Northview project, and they're working with the District of Lake Country to get that back on track. Without that, we won't be developing. Our plan is, if we get this development permit, is just to prepare the site for the industrial buildings. And so what the site will look like is it's a big cut on one side and a big fill on the other side. And there's about 20,000 cubic meters of excess material. And that material will be going into Kelowna, into the mission area of Kelowna. So it will be leaving Lake Country. And the plan for now is just to get the site flat. And as soon as we see the sewer project progressing, we're going to immediately apply for a development permit for form and character and for subdivision and proceed with the development. The building would be built over a period of 4 buildings, so 4 phases. Each building has about 10 units in it. And so we will build 1 phase at a time as far as the buildings go. And like I said, it's market driven. So as they sell, we will build, and that's the plan for the project.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Gamble?
Well, and I'm certainly keen on industrial development, or this type of industrial development, because light industrial is what we're talking here. So, that being said, I'm really concerned though about the impact on the neighbor. And not just one, but there's 2 or 3, and I'm just wondering how many feet or meters, I guess, are you back from Glenmore? Like, how many meters is the sloped area that you're talking about? Because in this picture, it's really hard to see. You see Glenmore, but you can't really see.
I don't know exactly what that distance is without having the drawings in front of me, but I would guess it's about 20 to 30 meters. As far as the neighboring properties, right across the street is open land. There's no orchards across the street from us. And the only residential properties close to us are the 2 properties to the south. And McDonald Communities owns both those properties.
I guess I look at it that it's agricultural land, and many properties I had seen in our community even 2 years ago were vacant, but now they're planted, and for the most part, they're being planted up with cherries because we are north, and so we offer great opportunity for growing sort of late season cherries. And it just surprises me, and I was hoping that we would see that buffer put in place. I am not stuck personally on a berm. I hear what you're saying, but I think that the buffer that is usually appropriate, which is usually a minimum of 15-meter buffer, would be certainly a huge improvement, and would offer, if it has a section of vegetative screening, would offer that protection over the long run from the dust, because it's possible this property could stall. I don't want to say that, but it is possible that it could stall. You said 20,000 cubic meters. Did I get that right?
Approximately.
That's quite a significant amount.
Of course.
Of earth being removed. And we see gravel pits all around. I don't want to call it a gravel pit, but reality is there's going to be a lot of gravel there. And I just think that if we actually took that proactive step of asking for that to be put in place, you use your best guess as to where you're going to be for your main entrance.
We know where that's going to be.
Of course.
Yeah.
So, putting that in, it's not a large amount of money. We're talking $58,000.
Oh, no.
In the whole scheme of things, that's not a.
If I could speak to that. So,
okay.
When we apply for development, we get what we call as a PLR, and it's a preliminary layout review from the engineering department, who basically says, okay, go ahead and develop the site as long as you do this, this, and this. And one of the things they're going to be asking of us is to improve the frontage of our frontage on Glenmore Road. So we're going to have to add curbs, sidewalks, walking path or whatever the engineering department asks of us for improving the frontage on Glenmore Road. And then after, so that work alone would just about destroy the buffer. And then you couple that with after we flatten the site and we apply for subdivision, we then have to get our civil engineering done. And then we have to bring the equipment back on the site to put in all the roads, all the underground sewer, water, storm sewer, all the shallow utilities have to come in. And that all has to come in from Glenmore Road onto the property. So any buffer that we put in now, and I don't mind doing it if that's what you want me to do, but it pretty well will get destroyed in the process of developing the project. We're more than happy to do it, and I'm more than happy to also have our engineers and our contractors put together a really solid dust control program, which requires them to water whenever the dust is flying. The process of flattening the site, I'm sure, will be done in about a week's time. And from that point on, it'll sit and wait until we get our subdivision application approved and go through the next development permit. The next development permit will show form and character of the buildings, and it would also show the landscape for the entire project and not just the buffer. So there's a lot of work to do yet. We're just trying to get it ready. The main reason we're focusing on it now is we have a spot for that 20,000 cubic meters in Kelowna in the Mission. There's a project there that will take it off our hands. We don't have to find a spot here in Lake Country to dump it. And then, you know, when the market comes back, at least the site is ready and we're ready to go with the buildings and hopefully get them done, maybe even as early as this fall. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Cara. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Reid.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Don, for braving the COVID environment and coming to talk to us. That you answered my question as to why do we need to flatten the site now as opposed to waiting for the market for the subdivision and everything else like that. So right. I appreciate that. My question would be is, as it's a phased development, is the proposal not, and given what you've said about the potential to disturb the landscape buffer, when would the landscape buffer actually go in? When the fourth building's built, or when the second, or when it's the upper plateau or the lower plateau? When is it safe to put that landscape buffer in?
So when we say a phased development, it's just the buildings that are phased. So once we get our subdivision approval, we will go in and put in all the internal streets. And usually the first building. And now maybe at that time we may have more buildings sold out. So we may do 2 or 3 or maybe all of them. But servicing the site and finishing the site will include the roads, the street lights, everything. And the only thing that will be phased is the actual buildings.
Right.
And so we will landscape the entry. We'll landscape the first building. And then as the buildings get built, we'll continue on with the landscape. At that time, no, the ALR buffer could be done because now all the servicing's done, the improvements to Glenmore Road are done, and the entire ALR buffer could be done at the time of the very first building.
That's okay. The first building or the servicing?
At servicing the
right.
site. Yeah.
Okay, so which is looking at September.
Sure, it could be.
It could be September.
It all depends on the sewer project.
Right.
And we have hopes that that's going to go forward this summer.
Okay. And if, for example, the sewer project doesn't go forward, I noticed there's a hydro seeding aspect to it. So would that dampen the dust down if you hydro seeded the whole lot, or is it just hydro seeding the banks? Hydro
seeding is a really tricky thing. It can only be done certain times of the year. Any other time, if you do it in the summer, it just doesn't grab. The seeds don't germinate.
Right.
So it has to be done early in the spring or late in the fall.
Right.
And obviously that's the time when we would do it if we're ready for it.
Okay. Because it's just noticed that you will be hydro seeding the lot as part of the thing. And my final question is just a really random one, but 15 bat boxes and bird boxes, is that 15 in total or 15 each?
I don't know. The environmental report is in the package, and I have to say I'm supposed to have all the answers, but I don't have that.
It just says 15. It doesn't say whether it's 30 or 50?
Yeah, the environmental consultant will be monitoring the leveling of the site when we get this permit, if we get this permit, if you choose option A. And we will also be providing, and maybe already have an erosion and soil control permit or a plan for the engineering department.
And so my final question would be, if you don't get the subdivision this summer because of other factors, the sewer on Glenmore not being ready, what is the contingency plan to continue the dust control going on into the next year?
Well, there won't be any dust control from the site if there's no traffic on it, because it is gravel.
Right.
It's not like a dust you would see, say, at Lakestone in the benchlands.
Okay,
This is granular material. It's all granular material, so there'd be no dust other than when the equipment's actually working.
okay, so we're dealing with quite a narrow time frame of disturbance on the dust that would move across the road to the orchard on the map there.
Yeah, and I promise you this, that I will have our contractors present a dust control plan, and we'll monitor that to make sure that that does not happen. This is a very quick project to do this cut and fill. The contractor is a very big company, and they move a lot of earth really, really fast. So it's not going to be probably more than a week to 10 days to do the whole flattening of the site.
Would that have an impact on the cherries if it was done that quickly? Because then,
Depends how ripe
yeah,
they
they're
are.
ripening.
I'm probably not the right one to comment on it, but I guess the concern that I would have is that removing it is one concern, but if there is a large area of land that's just been, resculptured and so on, and if it's left for a long time, I would be concerned about the ongoing dust.
Yeah,
There would be
okay.
dust because it's above and the wind could blow down and, that would be a concern. I can see benefits of getting that removed quickly. I certainly can, because it allows you to move forward. And, that is a big part of actually getting getting those buildings there.
Right.
I think, I don't know if I can say this, but I'm just thinking that, I think it's important that if we do go with option one, that we would write into that motion that the agricultural buffer needs to be in place before the buildings proceed. So, so when you're building the first building, that gets put in.
So just to be clear, we would do the improvements to Glenmore Road. We would build the internal road into the project. And as soon as all those services are in and under the road, we would start the buffer immediately after that, before any buildings start. Absolutely no problem with that.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks, Don. So yeah, that was one of the questions I had on this one, like with this map here. With those orchards on the other side, obviously cherry season is just showing up right now. So realistically, you're not starting this until the cherries are probably already off the trees. Because
I think we would be if we got this development permit, we would be starting tomorrow if we could. That's the plan. We're that desperate to get this material into Kelowna. The development site in the Mission is in the low area of the Mission where the golf course used to be. And we have a really short window to get this material out of there. So our plan would be, if we got this development permit, is to get the site ready right away.
So that would be my only concern, is that those cherries are already, and if we are seeing dust, and even though we've been getting a pile of rain here, it's supposed to get better. Is there anything temporary that we can put up in there?
Industrially, can happen all the time.
Yeah, I know.
So just trying to meet both sides here, and I agree, it's that if that dust gets on those cherries,
The only thing that I can really offer after
Okay.
being in this business
I got
my
you.
entire life is dust control, and that's with water, right? When the equipment's working.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
as they're working, is to have water, if there's no hydrants available, to have water trucks there at all times to make sure that dust is controlled. And just put somebody on it monitoring it, 24/7 when they're working.
'Cause I would be comfortable if you can control the dust, but otherwise, that's the last thing I want.
That's the only way I can
Yes.
think of
Okay.
to control it.
Okay.
Unless somebody else has other suggestions.
Okay,
No, gotcha.
thank you.
Okay, Councillor Arlen. He's got a big club in his hand. Can't hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
You didn't give me another one.
No.
I don't have a hearing aid yet. What's that? You should be able to. Okay, oh, there we go.
Whoa.
A little bit of feedback there. I work on these kind of sites all the time, almost every day, because I'm usually the guy that's in there monitoring the guys who are making rock with the big things that go boom. I'm perfectly comfortable with dust mitigation in this case. I see it all the time, you know, blasting in residential neighborhoods or blasting near agricultural businesses where people don't want that dust mitigation, and a good dust mitigation plan is going to solve that problem. It's not going to be created on a regular basis because this is not a dirt sand filled site. This is a rock filled site, and rock doesn't blow in the wind. So they'll be creating a lot of dust. Well, not a lot of dust, but they'll be creating some dust when they remove the stuff. But if they got it done in a week, it'll be minimal if they employ good dust mitigation, which it sounds to me like they're prepared to do. So there won't be ongoing dust, but if we have the assurance that the buffer goes in before the buildings, because that's probably the next dusty phase, but again, it's a rock area. You know, I attend sites where they blast and blow all this stuff up in the air, but if it's rock, there's no dust. It has to be dirt, and it has to be sand to have that. And I just don't see that happening. So as long as they have a good dust mitigation plan and that they fulfill the buffer when that needs to happen, because I don't see us forcing them to build a buffer and then have to tear it out. Not forgetting that this kind of development in our community is something that we really, really, really need. We really need some light industrial in our community. We don't have that to mix into our tax base. We have plans for other, but it's not coming along very quickly. So, you know, if we can accelerate this one and get it going and help out our homeowners, because right now they're carrying the brunt of the tax bill. And if we can have some light industrial, plus providing jobs for people that can actually live and work in this community, because there's not a lot of those. And that's really important. So I support option A, and if we want to write in the buffer coming after the servicing, I'm happy with that.
Councillor Cozen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just like to say that I fully support this. It was nice to see that you guys put in the extra effort to put in the bat boxes and stuff like that. And I like the idea of the buffer. It's I think Councillor Gamble was asking how far away the buildings were from the Glenmore Road, and that other depiction you had up there, it shows that the buffer is 3 meters with another 8.49 meters of open space before the building, and that's on a 3-to-1 slope. So that's all like really nice. It's not like asking for a retaining wall or having a steep, sharp thing. The buildings will be quite high above the roadway, but that's all right if it's going to be a light industrial area that we're going to develop and build in, and it's something that we need for our tax base. So I fully support this. Thank you very much. If I could just make a comment, you're going to be real proud of the buildings when you see them. We're going to do a real good job of making them presentable from the road. And just one more thing, we're working with OK Sand and Gravel, which is just to the north of us, and they're hopefully going to take our topsoil and the small trees that are on the site for their reclamation of their pit. So none of that will be actually leaving the site. It may just cross the property lines right into their pit. So that's going to save some more. Hopefully we can get that put together.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question. After, I know we were talking about dust mitigation while the equipment is in operation, and I appreciate Councillor Arlen's technical expertise on this because he knows what he's talking about with blowing things up. My question would be, what sort of recourse would the neighbouring property owner have if they experienced issues after after the equipment was gone? So say, for example, you hit a pocket of sandy soil. What would be their process to address any impacts that they had on their orchards once the equipment's left and we're waiting for the next phase of development to happen?
So you're saying that if the dust starts up after we leave?
After you leave, yeah. Like if there's a windstorm and it happens to hit at cherry farming harvesting time and they have an issue, what's their process to kind of get that resolved?
So there is one thing that we've done in the past. I'm not sure this is available to us, but we have gone to the mills in the past. They have what they call hog fuel. It's the really, really coarse mulch that comes from the mills. And we sometimes spread that on the site to prevent dust. And we also use it on the roads that the equipment's driving on back and forth from one to another. So if the dust becomes a problem, that's certainly a solution as well.
And would it be the process for them to reach out to the district, or have you been in communication? Have you already got a relationship there with that neighbouring property owner that they could use to relay any concerns?
So you're talking with the ALR across the road?
Yeah.
I have not met them.
Okay.
Like I say, we own the properties to the south.
Right.
And so we have not met them, but I would gladly, they could call me anytime and let me know.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councillor Scarrow.
Yes, finally, before I call the question on Todd and my original motion, I would like just to mention that Lakestone did receive a national award for development, and I wanted to congratulate Don and his people for winning that award. It is a Canada-wide award, and they beat out different developments from all across Canada. So good job, sir.
Thank you. Councillor Blair, or Councillor Ireland. Okay. I have a motion. It's Councillor Campbell. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if you could read that motion, because we did, I don't know if you want an amendment to include that buffering should be.
Get the planner to,
Your worship, could I make one more comment, please?
yes.
We have to come back for one more development permit, which is the form and character. At that point in time, you could make this request of us.
That being said, we're doing a development permit now, and I think it is in our best interest to have it in there, because at least it's addressed, and otherwise it can fall off the table. Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. No more questions for you. Thank Mr. Erdley.
And maybe Mr. Dupuy can suggest the wording that would be appropriate to address our concern.
Absolutely, through your worship, that the DP, so I won't read the first section, we've done that, but we could also add, and that prior to issuing, hold on, let me think about this for a minute. We could add, and that council, I should read this. Be something to the effect of, and that council requires that the landscape berm be installed prior to buffer. Talking berms and buffers. Buffer be installed prior to construction of the industrial buildings.
Great.
Your worship, technically that's an actual amendment, so we need to, no, it's not a friendly amendment. It changes
an
the
amendment.
permit altogether. So unfortunately, you have to have an amendment, and then you call the question on the main motion.
Councillor Scarrow opposed, motion, amendment carries. Voting on the main motion, all those in favor? As amended. Those in favor? Opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much. Good. Thanks, Lynn. All right, next up.
Your worship, I'm not sure if we mentioned that the zoning amendment that is on the agenda was actually withdrawn by the applicant.
Oh, yeah, I don't have that one on my agenda, so.
Okay, and that was actually closed.
Yeah, that file was closed. That was the Juniper Cove Road or whatever. And that's withdrawn. All right, financial, or no, annual report. Where did our, beg pardon?
We have BC
BC
Transit budget. Annual operating agreement, sorry.
Who's doing the BC Transit? But
So I'll be doing that one, your worship. That's Matthew.
where are you?
I'm online.
All right.
Okay.
We didn't see anything else but this.
You're doing well. You're doing well.
I-
Everything is new.
You just gotta stop here.
No, I know it's been slow. We're trying to figure that out.
Once this showed up.
Go ahead. There we are.
I know Mr. Salmon is ready, but maybe if we can wait a few seconds until we are we ready, Rena? Okay, Matthew, please.
All right, you're, you ready? Where you go, Matthew? You're doing
Okay,
the,
so do I need to, sorry, do I need to bring the council report up with a resolution, or can everybody see it there already?
can't, if you bring it up, then we lose everything else, but,
Okay, I won't bring it up then. I'll just talk to it.
right.
Okay, so thank you, Worship. Good evening, everyone. So essentially it's that time of year when we renew our annual operating agreement with BC Transit. This operating agreement is for the 2020 to 2021 period and reflects service levels and revenue prior to any changes due to COVID-19. So the service levels remain unchanged from the previous operating agreement, i.e. last year's. Just a bit of background info, the Mayor and I attended a public transit forum hosted by UBCM today. And during that forum, BC Transit presented with their plans and informed us that there are still many unknowns in this current climate, and that they are actively looking at ridership data across the province in order to make recommendations to the local government partners on essential service levels. So they've still got a lot of figuring out to do themselves right now. But they did say once they've established a new approved baseline for our service and evaluated any associated financial impacts, they may look at amending our annual operating agreements to reflect the new service levels and revenue implications for approval. But that's further down the road, obviously. So with that, the preferred staff option is that the annual operating agreement for transit service between the District of Lake Country and BC Transit for the period of April 1, 2020 to March 31st, 2021 be authorised. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Councillor Scarrow moved, Councillor Kozub second. Any further discussion? Those in favour? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we get the annual report.
Okay, let me try this. Your worship, as regulated by the community charter, we are required to approve an annual report and by June the 30th of each year. And the report was prepared by all the departments with a collaboration, especially of the communication group, who put together the format of the report, which is in front of you. The report requires certain aspects of the business to be reported back to the council and the community. And they're all pretty much set up by the Ministry of Municipal Affairs through legislation. So and through determinations of the ministry. So the request from us is that the report be approved.
Councillor Scarrow moved, Councillor Ireland second, Councillor Reid speak.
I shall speak. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just thought it was a great report, great read. I just wanted to point out on page 10, there is the LCFD Fire Services Awards. And last year, Mr. John Baxter received the inaugural Mark Berrineau Memorial Award, which was instigated by his family. He passed away, and it was an award to exemplify the key values and ethics of a Lake Country Fire Department member, not just within the department, but within the community. And would it be possible in respect to his, in a matter of respect to his family and also to the recipient of the award, to include that in the final version?
That's an easy one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
James, what year was that picture you took?
Which?
The one in the annual report. You're looking fairly young.
That's a good thing with computers. I need a motion. I have a motion. Councillor Scarrow, Councillor Gamble, those in favor? Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. All right. We're down to councillor items. We'll start with Councillor Koza. He hasn't said anything all evening. I want to hear.
I speak with my emails. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's nice to be sitting back here with all you guys. I missed you all so much. I love you so much. So it's nice to be back here and debating in face, because it was kind of weird debating when you're looking at a screen and sitting in your office, and just kind of strange. So it's nice to be back. I just want to make an announcement. Heary. George Koza will be turning 90 on June 26th.
Wow.
And on June 27th, we will be having a birthday party for him, starting at 3:30 p.m. at the new Kangaroo Creek Farm from 3:30 to 6. So everyone is invited. Bring your families and bring refreshments for yourself. There'll be no refreshments and stuff, but we'll be practicing social distancing, and hope to have a good time. So I just wanted to say that. And once again, it's nice to see you all here again.
Thank you. Councillor Gamble.
Well, not much from me tonight, but it is really nice to be back around the table without a mask. We've got some nice social distancing going on here, and hopefully we will, as a community, be able to get through the summer well, following these rules that got set out for us, and get this virus under control.
Thank you. Councillor Scarrow.
Yeah, I think I'll just say happy birthday, George. And nice to be back with my friends.
Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, great to be back. It's a nice way to meet for a change. In our neck of the woods, upper Lake Country, we have a little bit of water issues going on. Just our community hall is flooding. We have water in the ball field on the infield now. So it's hopefully we're at full pool. I think Okanagan Lake is, but I hope we are as well, because anything higher and might have some more issues. I hope so. But anyways, I hope that our boaters out there can be a little responsible and not be doing the wake surfing close to the where the boats are. So I think it's very important right now because it's pretty high.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo everybody's thoughts. Lovely to be back. Thank you to staff who have put this all together and have continued to persevere in the midst of technological crises and incompetence on my part. So thank you. I just wanted to, I'm on a bit of a fire department thing tonight. So I just wanted to say, in recognition of 3 of our firefighters who were supposed to be in Seattle doing the stair climb of the Space Needle in aid of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. It's the largest stair climb, and firefighters climb the Space Needle in one go, in full kit, with respirators and oxygen tanks. And I think the record is on like 12 minutes or something insane. But our guys persevered. Mr. Tom Clements, Mr. Chris Backhouse, and Mr. Patrick Schreibert continued, even though they couldn't do it in Seattle, they did it on Mount Baldy. And they did the equivalent in all their kits and continued to raise money. So I just wanted to say thank you to them, and thank you to the communications team who put them out on Facebook. So thank you.
Good. Thank you. Councillor Ireland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would echo the comments of my other councillors, and it's great to be back in person. And again, thanks to the staff for doing all the hard work to make these things happen, because it hasn't been easy. And they've done a great job. The only thing that lets them down is the equipment, and that's certainly not their fault. It's just the way it goes. I try to explain that to my dad every day. His phone doesn't work because it doesn't work sometimes. But a couple of things. Okanagan Center Community Hall, thank God we built it a little bit higher than Oyama, so we're not really worried about the flooding. Down there in middle Lake Country. So, but we are engaged in a project. We're lowering the entrance floor to match the main new floor, which I had the chance to be on earlier this week, and it's a big liability issue. So it's existed for a while, and now they're finally gonna fix it. So, and there's bookings starting to come in. So weddings and things are starting to come forward. They're gonna be small. You know, they're like 15 people, but the hall's gonna get going, and that's exciting. Just to add to Councillor McKenzie's thoughts, because he lives on the other lakes, Okanagan Lake is actually more than full pool. It's substantially higher. It's higher than it was in 2018. And the wakeboard boats, if they could just stop wake surfing, it doesn't matter how far away they are. Those waves that they generate travel across the entire lake, and it really will be only a couple of weeks till the lake starts to lower itself. But you know, if they could respect people's properties and respect the shoreline and the environment, and just hold off for a little while. It's pretty cold in that water right now, so maybe a couple weeks cutting it off, because going out in the middle of the lake is not going to solve the problem. Those waves they don't dissipate that quickly. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I did a little video with our communications group congratulating our graduates this year, and thanking our youth counselors again for the contributions they had made. And it's going to be a tough fall for students that had wanted to get to university, or really things are up in the air, but presumably there's going to be funding for some summer jobs, and students that missed out on summer jobs because of the COVID. So, but it's an anxious time anyway for students, and I've been there in the fall when a whole new groups arrive, and that won't be happening this year, perhaps, and it's really unfortunate. Councillor Ireland?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might add to that, and I should have mentioned this. UBCO's grad is taking place tomorrow, and it's taking place online. My daughter's graduating, so we're going to be watching it. It's going to be a challenge. You know, the kids aren't super engaged, so it'd be great for people to take some time and tune in. You can tune in on Facebook or numerous other platforms, and it should be pretty cool. And they've got some, you know, their keynote speaker is Rick Mercer. You know, so because of all this electronic stuff, he's able to attend the kids' grad and speak. So that's going to be interesting. And they've got a few really good bands and things to play along as well. So, you know, there's lots of kids from Lake Country that are going to be graduating. So if you have the time, tune in for a little while. Help support those kids.
Why don't give that time again? Other people might do it, and Okanagan College is doing it, I think, at the same time.
Yeah,
with,
I'll just pull up that time again. It's on Castanet, but I'm pretty sure it starts at 2:30.
Oh, communication. Corporate officer is saying we can do communication share on our platform.
Okay, hold on, I've just about got it here. Oh, come on. That's slow internet, man.
2:30 was it?
2:30, yeah.
Yeah.
Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and Panopto. Never heard of that one, but whatever platform that is. But yeah, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and 2:30.
Very really good. All right. Good night to all, and good night to all the ships at sea, or whatever.